Web design is about multidisciplinary mastery and distinct focus, and that is the thinking behind the brief books for people who make websites in the A Book Apart series. The series covers the emerging and essential topics in web design and development with style, clarity, and above all, brevity, because the authors don't want the reader and developer to waste time. The goal of every title in their catalog is to shed clear light on a tricky subject: web development. Fortunately, much of the content in the 8 books in the A Book Apart series can be applied to many other design mediums, including video. Let's look into the points from the current series that apply to video. Let's start with book number 1, HTML5 for web designers. HTML5 is the largest HTML spec ever written. That means 2 things. To gain understanding of HTML is more difficult than ever before. But second, the possibilities of what you can do with HTML are greater than ever. As bandwidth has increased, video content has grown increasingly popular. Currently, Flash is the go-to for displaying video content on the web. HTML5 could potentially change that. Until now, there has not been a standard for showing a video or movie on a web page. Today, most videos are shown through a plugin such as Flash. HTML5 defines a new element which specifies a standard way to embed a video or movie on a web page. That is the video element. To show a video in HTML5, you need a piece of code that looks like this. The control attribute adds video controls like play, pause, and volume. It is also a good idea to always include width and height attributes. If height and width are set, the space required for the video is reserved when the page is loaded. However, without these attributes, the browser does not know the size of the video and cannot reserve the appropriate space to it. The effect will be that the page layout will change during loading, and more specifically, while the video loads. You should also insert text content between the video and video out tags for browsers that do not support the video element. Beware though, not all browsers will play the same video format. The video element allows multiple source elements to remedy this. Source elements can link to different video files. The browser will use the first recognized format. There are currently 3 formats that work with the video element: MP4, WebM, and OGG. The video element is also stylable. Book number 2 in the series, CSS3 for web designers, gives a brief overview of the features of CSS3. Many of the features in CSS3 can be applied to the video element. Perhaps you want to drop shadow on the video players of a website that has multiple video players. Use CSS3 to apply a drop shadow to the video players with one set of code instead of coding these individually. Book number 3 in the series is titled The Elements of Content Strategy. As the title implies, it briefly explores content strategy's roots and quickly and expertly demonstrates not only how it's done, but how it can be done well. The one central principle of good content is that the content should be appropriate for the organization, its users, and for its context. It should be appropriate in its method of delivery, its style and structure, and above all, its substance. So, what does this mean for video? The same thing it means for other design mediums, including web development. Bottom line, you can't give cat people expecting a catnip video a dog owner's audio podcast on bone selection. If your cat people get a dog podcast, they aren't getting the substance that is appropriate for them. Furthermore, the audience has been let down because the delivery is improper. Funny sound effects aside, content is appropriate for when users to help them accomplish their goals. As a videographer, it is your job to make sure your audience is given the content they are looking for in a timely manner, in the appropriate format, and a style that is easy to absorb so that when they walk away from your content, they're fulfilled, not left questioning what they just watched. You must create your media to cater to the context in which your viewer is taking in your media. If your cat video is about what to do when your cat is choking, most likely the viewer will be more frantic because most likely their cat is choking. In this case, you'll want to keep the video content concise and to the point with a good visual on what to do so Mr. Whiskers doesn't lose one of his 9 lives. On the other hand, if the cat video is about why cats like feathers so much, you can afford to have more content in a more stylish manner because the viewer is probably going to be much more relaxed and most likely just curious about why cats like feathers so much. Whereas if you make the video too short and too much to the point with too little information, as with the choking video, your viewer will be still questioning your video at the end. In other words, you didn't help them. In a nutshell, this covers the content in book number 3. Book number 4 covers responsive web design. In 1993, video capability was added to computers via the Unix platform. Add the internet, and the rest is history. Video. Yep, it's not just for TV anymore. It's for TV, desktop computers, gaming systems, laptops, tablets, phones, and much more. What does this mean for the video guys out there? More awareness for not only what the audience is watching, but how they are watching. Are they in the airport watching your tutorial video on an iPhone? Or relaxing at home watching some YouTube on the Roku streaming media box? This book covers the facets of responsive design as it applies to web design. When you create your video, you must keep in mind that the viewer on the phone will not see your video as the viewer on the desktop computer. With responsive design video, your 1920 by 1080 video will display as 640 by 480, much smaller than the originally produced size. Your small details start to disappear, like this size 9 print font becoming a blurry white line at the bottom of the screen, or the freckles on the face of the kid you clearly intended to have many freckles appears just 1 or 2. Bottom line, it's a good idea to remember that your video may be played on more than one medium, and that medium may have been coded to have a responsive design. If you know this in advance, you can better prepare by either keeping small detail out of the video or making an alternate version of the video to play on mobile or small screen devices. Book number 5 is titled Designing for Emotion. This book is all about making your work stand out from the rest. To make your work trigger an emotional response for the user that makes a significant difference. Many people have seen the popular video, Evolution of Dance, featuring a comedian named Judson Lampley. He goes through every genre of dance in approximately 6 minutes. When you say the words Evolution of Dance in public to anyone that wasn't hiding under a rock in the period between 2006 and 2009, they probably will think of that video. Why? Well, not just because that video is viral and it has been passed around in more offices and high schools than a strong strain of the flu, but because it triggered an emotional response. Those that viewed it got an emotional response. For most, it was amazing to see Lampley's dance skills. For others, it was hilarious to see a guy in his 30s go through 30+ dances in under 6 minutes, by himself. If you ask many, this was one of the first viral videos and lived on YouTube as the most watched video on the entire site for a number of years. If that doesn't say I got an emotional response, then what does? Let's look at a more recent and serious example. Kony 2012 was a short film produced by Invisible Children Incorporated. The film's purpose was to promote the charity Stop Kony movement to make African cult and militia leader and indicted war criminal, the International Criminal Court fugitive Joseph Kony, globally known in order to have him arrested by the end of 2012, when the campaign expired. From its release in March 2012 to present, it has had over 98 million views and has been called the most viral video ever by Time magazine. The campaign resulted in a resolution by the United States Senate and contributed to the decision to send troops by the African Union. The parent organization behind Kony 2012, Invisible Children Incorporated, has been around a lot longer than the Kony 2012 campaign, but it has just now gained much of its support from the popularity of the Kony 2012 movement. Again, why? The video was designed for emotion. It triggered a response from many of its viewers. Some simply posted the video to their Facebook for others to see, while others made financial contributions to the cause. In conclusion, carefully considered content and well-executed design work in harmony to produce an emotional response from viewers. Keep in mind when creating a video that you aren't just feeding content. You are creating a human experience that should cause a reaction. It is essential that your work show what the human touch can do. Book 6 is titled Mobile First. While it doesn't apply to video directly, it is important to note something mentioned about the book on responsive design. Your video might not just be watched on the big screen. Be sure to plan for your video to be viewed on multiple mediums. Avoid using small details in your video if you know that it will be potentially viewed on a small screen. An alternative is to create a different version to be played on small screen devices. Remember, your video will go where the viewer goes. You don't want to leave them hanging. Book 7 is very important when it comes to any kind of design work, and it is a topic I will focus on a bit more intensively. Design is a job, plain and simple. Your work as a designer should not be taken for granted. I'll start my comparison for this chapter with a story. Once I took a freelance job making videos for a doctor that specialized in seasonal allergies. He asked if I could take some footage he had shot and add graphics to make him 200 DVDs. Being fresh out of college and excited to have a gig, I said yes. To make the job even more intensive, he asked me to do it in just 4 days, despite the fact that I had a full-time job outside of freelance work. To make matters even worse, I only quoted him just $500 to do it all. Long story short, I pulled 2 overnighters in a row and drove 70 miles before work the following day to deliver his finished project on time. He was on first look grateful for my hard work as he thanked me and said I had done a good job. I handed him my invoice and he said have a good day, and I thought that was that. I hoped to receive payment within a week. After a month, I decided to send another invoice. To that, he just sent me an email back stating that he had more work planned to do with me in the future. I still send him invoices to this day, but 3 years later, I still haven't been paid and most likely won't be anytime soon. Why? Because I made many mistakes on this project. While my work might have been satisfactory, I made all of the wrong decisions that are covered in Book 7. First, I didn't have a contract with the doc. Having a contract doesn't prevent things like those in my experience from happening, but it is the first line of defense in keeping them from happening. For instance, I could have outlined the amount I was to be paid and when he was to pay for it. Second, I undercharged him. I put in over 20 hours of work, which included making 200 DVDs by hand, one at a time, for only $500. If he would have paid me, he would have still gotten a heck of a bargain. He would have roughly gotten $2,500 worth of work for just 1/5 of what he normally would have paid. I should have charged as much as I could have. The third thing I did wrong was the second thing I did wrong. By undercharging him, I showed a lack of confidence in my own work. I showed him that although it may not have been true, that I was unsure that I was the right person for the job and that my work may be subpar. Next, I agreed to an unrealistic time frame to complete the job. I basically danced for peanuts with this project. Fifth, I was naive and thought this was a relatively small job. As the book explains, beware of small jobs, because small jobs contain the same kind of problems as big jobs, minus the budget or the time to fix them. And sixth, I did not establish ground rules for the doc and I to work together. I just took the work and ran with it. Seventh, I did not collect enough feedback from the client upon completion. He just gave me a visual once-over of the DVDs and their covers and said, "Good job." I should have asked him to watch the videos and to provide really detailed feedback. Finally, the biggest mistake I made was accepting the project, because not all clients are right for all videographers. In conclusion, the doc and I were not a good pair at all. I was too eager to get a job, and he was not that eager to put a lot into his videos. To this day, I still send him invoices and occasionally call his office, but let's face it, I'm not going to get paid. And that's okay. I was paid more in knowledge than the $500 would ever have been worth. This book covers all of these aspects in a web design perspective, but really, every bit of this book can be related to other design occupations. If I could go back 3 years and tell myself one thing, it would be to read book 7 of this series prior to taking that job. I guarantee you I wouldn't have taken the job. As the author states in the book's conclusion, this is hard. It's hard work to get up every morning designing things for people. A lot of the time, you'll hit your head against the wall, but the times you didn't strike out, the times you hit a home run, will stand out much more than the bad times. Book 7 outlines how well to deal with design as a job. Finally, Book 8, titled Content Strategy for Mobile, delves into just that. As it relates to video, it is important to remember what has already been mentioned in this video several times. Your video may be viewed on a mobile device. 86% of smartphone users say they use their phones while watching TV. That being said, your video could incite an emotional response to have them look up information about your client after they watch your video. Disagree? 71% of that same 86% say they've searched for more information on their mobile device after seeing an ad on TV. After someone sees an ad, they will most likely look up the organization it is for after they have enough exposure to it. It is unlikely, though, that they will wait till the next day to look up that information. They will want to do it right away, and they will do it on their mobile device. Having mobile content ready for them is important for conversion to occur. It is very important again to mention that a video will have a very different feel going from desktop computer to mobile device unless it has a version that is separate for the mobile device. Sometimes, though, it's just not feasible to have a different version of the video just for mobile devices. In most cases, it is just easier to keep in mind that the video will play on both desktops and mobile devices while editing. Designing a video that effectively plays on both mediums will ensure total viewer response and satisfaction. The A Book Apart series is a great resource for both web designers and videographers alike as a go-to for daily questions that arise. As designers, it is our job to connect with our users, whether it is on a website or through a video. We should be aware of responsive designs and mobile designs so our user isn't inconvenienced while retrieving our information. It's also important that we provide the information that the user needs and that it is in the correct context that they need it to be in. If they have a reaction due to an emotional response, then we have had a successful delivery. In addition, it is important to remember not to throw ourselves under the bus for a job and to realize that both sides of the client design architecture have different yet symbolic needs. All this in mind, the designer is more likely to have a better design experience and the client is more likely to end up with a better end product. I'm Charles Lammers. Thanks for watching. Go forth and conquer.